Alrighty, I want to welcome everyone out to tonight's Tax Lien and Deed training. I'm excited to be here. Welcome all of you that are attending, and I'm sure we're going to have some people stroll in as we get going through the training tonight. Now, if you have any questions, go ahead and ask them in the questions section. I'll try to get to as many questions as I can. If I'm not able to answer your question, just send me an email and I'll be able to answer it that way, because sometimes I'm not able to get to every question. And so that's a great way that you can just send me an email and I can answer your questions that way. Excuse me. Tonight we're going to be talking about online auctions and internet investing. So we're going to go over some of the different strategies that you can use, some of the different company websites and county websites that are used for online auction investing. We're going to look into tax deed auctions, tax lien auctions. We're going to go actually review some upcoming auctions. There's a lot of great opportunity that's taking place throughout the country, and so obviously I want to make you guys aware of it, make my students aware of it, so that you can take advantage of some of these opportunities. So in tonight's training, we're going to talk about online auctions. We're going to go through RealAuction.com, Grant Street Group. We're going to talk about SRI auctions. And then we're also going to review some of the other companies that handle tax lien and tax deed auctions. Then we're actually going to go review some online auctions. So I'm going to take you through the process. We're going to go review some upcoming auctions. I'm going to show you the process of registering, or show you how it's done. And then from there, we're going to actually look at upcoming properties, review properties, do a quick search on them to find out about what they're worth, see if we can find any type of street view of the properties, and see what type of properties are coming up for sale, and also what price points they're being sold at. Really, tonight and now in particular is the best time to get started with your dreams. Whatever is not started today is never finished tomorrow. And you guys are taking that first step, and it may be more than the first step, but this is something you may have done in the past, but you guys are on the line tonight, which means that you're serious about creating wealth through tax and certificates, through tax deed investing. And so I want to congratulate you for that. I know with everything that we have involved in our lives, taking an hour out of your time to participate with me, I really appreciate that. So as far as your student resources, if you're on the line tonight, you've been set up with a guest pass to the training website. That's going to give you access to all of the information that we have available. In addition, of course, we have our weekly Wednesday webinars. They start at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 6 o'clock Pacific Time. And so it's kind of right there where hopefully we can get most people, or it's time that's going to work out for most people. You can also, of course, email me at support@secretsoftaxlinginvesting or stephen.taxliens@gmail.com. And of course, those email addresses are available on the website. Now, we're going to be talking, as I mentioned, about online tax lien and tax deed auctions. And we're going to go through and talk about several different companies that conduct online auctions. And so we'll go through and review those different companies. But on secretsoftaxlinginvesting.com, we have put together a list and databases of all of the online auctions. So you don't have to worry about trying to find what companies handle which auctions, or where do I go to find the online auction, because we provide all that information for you on Secrets of Tax Lien Investing. And so you can go ahead and click on the online auction tab, and you can research the online auctions by tax lien, by tax deed, by redemption deed, and you can see that we have both tax lien and tax deed auctions. And then you can click on any of the links to be directed directly to the county websites. We're also going to have listed there what type of auction it is, and also the dates of the sale. So as far as some upcoming auctions that are going to be taking place over the next little while, California has some online auctions, Florida has tax deed auctions, and they've also just recently opened up their over-the-counter tax lien certificates as available as well. And so even though these are over-the-counter tax liens, which means you're not going to be bidding online, bidding online against other investors at an auction, you're still going to go through that process of purchasing them online. And so that's the reason I want to talk about them as well and kind of put them in the same category, because it's really going to be a very similar process. You know, Florida holds their online auctions in May, and after their auction has taken place, many of the counties will offer the remaining tax lien certificates that weren't sold at the auction available on their auction websites, so we can purchase there as well. And so if you're looking at tax lien investing, that's definitely an avenue you can look in. In addition to Florida tax liens, there's also some Arizona tax liens occasionally, so there'll be some Colorado tax liens that we can research as well as far as online. Also, Cook County, Illinois is going to be conducting their tax lien certificate auctions. Indiana has both tax lien and tax deed auctions coming up. Louisiana, also New York, Michigan, and of course there's going to be some other states and areas that'll have auctions as well. But those are going to be the primary auctions that are going to be happening within the next 30 to 60 days or so. So many counties are moving to an online auction system. I mean, we've seen this when I guess I first started seeing online auctions maybe about 6, 7, maybe a little bit longer than that, but there wasn't very many. In fact, when I first got started in tax lien and deed investing, there wasn't even anything like an online auction. That was something that was in the future. That wasn't even something that we had thought about. In fact, when I first got started in tax sale investing, you really couldn't even research tax lien or tax deeds online. You essentially had to go down to the county courthouse, go through their records to be able to research individual tax liens or tax deeds that are coming up for auction. And the internet and the tools that are available to us now make it so much easier in so many ways to purchase tax lien certificates. Now, online auctions are going to be handled by the county. Although there are several different companies that have developed software and website that replaces the traditional auction at the county courthouse. Some counties have even developed their own systems to handle these online auctions. Now, as counties move to the online auction, there's going to be more opportunity for us to bid from the comfort of our home. And we've seen so many different areas in the country that are moving to an online auction system. I mean, even Florida is a perfect example. Probably 80 to 85% of their tax lien certificate auctions are now held online, and they're conducted by a few different companies, RealAuction, Grant Street Group, and we'll go through those in a few minutes. But a good majority of them are held online, and there's more counties that are selling their property through online auctions. So as far as the steps of attending or participating in an online auction, this is just a very simple breakdown, and we'll go into more detail. But the first thing you need to do is register for the website. Depending on the system, for example, if you register for RealAuction, you can many times use that username and password, that registration, for other auctions as well. So you may participate in a Lake County Tax and Certificate, Florida auction, but then you can also use that username and password to purchase, Miami-Dade taxing certificates on over the counter, as long as they're using the RealAuction platform. And the same thing goes with Grant Street Group and some of the other systems. Now, once you've registered for the website, then we're actually going to go through the tax sale list or the upcoming auction list. We're going to do research on the individual investments that we're interested in. Once we've done the additional due diligent research, we've decided which investments we're interested in, then we're going to bid on these taxing certificates. And the bidding is going to take place on the auction website or the individual county auction website. So Bid for Assets, for example, they really have one website, and then each auction really has its own page. Some websites like Grant Street Group or RealAuction, they have their own specific website for each one of the counties. And so Polk County will have Polk County Auction. On the other hand, Grant Street Group will do exactly the same, but Bid for Assets, they're just going to really have their own page. And so Bid for Assets would be kind of similar to something like eBay, where there's one site and they're auctioning off the different tax sale list or the different properties on different web pages, while some of these other auction sites have a website that's completely dedicated to the online auction. And so you're going to go ahead and bid on the website, and it's very similar to any type of online auction. So if you've participated in eBay auctions or anything like that, you're at least familiar with online auctions as far as bidding on an item, and then whoever, of course, is the high bidder acquires the item. And then with tax lien certificates, it could be a little bit different because you're bidding down the interest rate. And then once the auction is ended, then whoever was the winning bidder will go ahead and be awarded the tax lien certificate or the tax deed. Now, some counties will provide pre-auction packets that contain instructions and procedures for participating in the auction. And most of the auctions will have websites or web pages that are completely dedicated to their online auction. Now, they're going to include important information. If you really plan on investing in one of these particular online auctions, it's important that you go through and read all of the material that's provided. It's going to give you a good idea of things that you may need to know about the county. You're going to want to go through the question and answer sections. You're going to want to go through the tutorials, the rules, the forms. They're going to have all that information that's available for us, and you want to know everything you can about that particular county or auction before you start participating. And some counties and some websites will actually include a trial auction, which will allow you to participate in a mock auction. You'll be able to try bidding on properties that really aren't real, or they may be real properties, but you're not actually doing a real bid on the property. It's just the opportunity to kind of go through that practice. And so if you're brand new to this, it's definitely worth spending a little time and going through that process so you become familiar with the website. That way you don't make any mistakes when you're bidding on individual properties or bidding on individual tax and certificates while you're going through the sale. Now, here are the major online auction providers that we're going to be working with is Tax Lien and Tax Deed Investors. Bidforassets.com. As I mentioned, they're kind of like the eBay for government tax sales. They sell tax sale properties. They sell different types of government auctions. If the Marshal Service seizes property or seizes some type of personal property like boats or cars or things like that, many times they're going to auction them off on bidforassets.com. And so along with the other stuff that they offer there, they're also going to offer tax sale properties, primarily tax deed properties for areas like California, for Washington. They've done Michigan auctions before, but primarily they're Washington and California. Those are the two biggest areas that hold their online auctions using bidforassets.com. RealAuction is probably the biggest company. Grant Street Group is pretty big as well, but RealAuction handles auctions for several different states, and we'll go through them here in a minute. Also Grant Street Group, SRI Auctions, and then Civic Source as well. So those are the biggest companies, but there's also smaller companies and individual websites that handle the online auctions as well, and so we'll go through some of those this evening. So RealAuction.com is, as I mentioned, one of the biggest online auction providers. They offer tax deed auctions in Florida. They also offer tax lien auctions in Florida, Colorado, Arizona, Illinois, Nebraska, and New Jersey. And so they're going to have many different auctions that are taking place in different areas of the country, and each one of those individual counties is going to have its very own website that is used for the tax lien or the tax deed auction. Now, RealAuction.com, as you can see, they have many different tax lien auctions. Their auctions are going to be listed by state and then by county. Now, you don't need to be as concerned about, going to this page and looking at the online auctions there because you're able to find all of this information on Secrets of Tax Lien Investing. So you can go through and see which Colorado auctions are taking place or which Florida auctions are taking place. Now, the auction dates are going to be listed with the website and when the auction is going to be taking place. And then you can click on any of these individual counties to be directed to the auction website. So as I mentioned, the online tax lien auctions that are handled by RealAuction.com has Florida, Colorado, Arizona, Illinois, Nebraska, and New Jersey. Now, with these auctions, before the auction comes up, so if Florida has their tax sales or Colorado has their tax lien auctions coming up, they actually have bidder orientation trainings that will take you through the process and help you become familiar with their system. So very much like we're on the call tonight, they actually set up a training which you can attend and go through that process and learn how the website works. They also each have their own practice site. So Arizona will have the practice site, or Florida will have their practice site. And you can go to that practice site and participate in a mock auction and go through the process so you become familiar with it. And these practice auctions are held daily, so you can participate in a new one every day. Also, RealAuction.com will offer online over-the-counter tax lien certificates. These are tax liens that are going to be offered right off their website after the sale. So Florida holds their auctions in May, between May and June. Usually by July, about this time of the year, the counties will have their online auction systems up and running, and as far as the over-the-counter tax lien certificates. And so you can go directly to the website and start purchasing tax liens, over-the-counter tax liens, right off the website. You can put in your information, your bank information, and purchase the tax liens directly. Now, these tax liens are many times called county-held liens, and these tax liens are usually going to be offered through most part of the year, throughout the year. Now, they'll go ahead and close down the over-the-counter tax lien before the auction takes place, so there'll be a time frame. But once they open up, they'll usually be available for about 9 to 10 months before they'll close them down before the auction takes place. Each county is also going to have its own auction website with tutorials and property information. You can see the registration tab here. You can go ahead and click on that tab to register. You can also click on the preview items for sale. That's going to be the sale list, and you can start reviewing the individual tax lien certificates. Also, over here on the left side, you're going to see that they have the bidding rules. They have training dates, site-guided tour, the tax certificate process. You're going to want to go through and review all this information if you plan on attending the auction and participating. You're going to want to see what the bidding rules say. You're going to want to go through the training dates so that you become familiar. The last thing you want to do is make a mistake because you didn't really understand how to be able to use their system. Okay, so once we went ahead and clicked on one of these tax lien certificate online auctions, the list is going to look very similar to this. We can see really just some basic information as far as the online auction list. We can see the ADV number. That's going to be the tax certificate number. We have the parcel ID. Then we have the face amount, and if it's available or not. If a property owner pays off their delinquent taxes right before the auction, then it may be unavailable. And so we can search by different criteria. What I'll usually do is I'll go ahead and click on the face amount here up at the top on one of the arrows so that I can take the tax lien certificate, so the list will be changed to the price. So it'll start with the highest tax lien certificate and go down, or the lowest tax lien certificate and go down, and then I'll search by price with the RealAuction system. And so that's kind of the process that you're going to go through. Is you're going to narrow down and say, okay, I want to spend between $1,000 to $2,000 for tax lien certificates, and then you'll go through and review tax lien certificates at around that price. Also, you can go ahead and click on any of these parcel records to pull up the property information. If you were to click on any of these parcel information, it's going to pull up the property records. And if you go ahead and click on this ADV number, it's going to pull up the information on the tax lien certificate. So you're going to be able to see, is there any other bids? on the tax lien certificate, maybe you'll see 3 bids. It's also going to have some of that basic property record information as well. So it may include the site address, the assessed value, and just some of that basic information on the individual properties. Also, Grant Street Group is going to hold online tax deed auctions, primarily for Florida. These Florida tax deed auctions are going to be usually held monthly. They offer tax deed foreclosures. They also have some websites for mortgage foreclosures, but we primarily focus on tax deed foreclosures because that's where you can acquire the best property for the best price. You're going to bid on real property directly from your computer. And so as you go through the auction process, you're just going to be bidding on individual property. This is the same system that I used over the last few months to purchase single-family homes in Florida. And so this is the same process that you would go through if you were going to participate in some of these online auctions. You're going to do the research beforehand, but then the actual auction you're going to be bidding online. You can also submit a high bid if you don't want to participate in the auction. I prefer and recommend, if you can, to participate in the auction. I just think it gives you a little bit better chance of trying to get a lower price, because you can kind of follow that auction and bid up $100 or $200 or $500 slowly versus just putting in your full bid price, and then somebody may bid up to that and go past you. At least gives you a better idea, but you can do it either way, depending on if you're available. If you're not available, then it's no problem just putting in your high bid price and it'll bid up. If somebody, if you put a high bid of $10,000 and somebody starts at 5 and they bid it up to 6, 7, 8, whatever that next high bid is, if somebody bids $8,000, then you're going to win the property, and then they stop, you're going to win the property at $8,100. You're just going to bid, have that next bump up. You're not going to buy the property for $10,000 if the second highest bidder went to $8,000. It's just going to be usually about $100 more up in price from what you initially purchased. They will also have tutorials and live training as well. So each county is going to have its own website to conduct their tax deed auctions. You're going to see it looks very similar to the tax lien certificate auctions. You can go ahead and click here to register. You're going to have your auction calendar, the foreclosure process, and some of the information over here to the side. Now, once you click on the auction calendar, it's going to look similar to this picture here. You're going to see that there's different auctions, auction dates. With this particular county that we're looking at, this county has both tax deed foreclosures. Oh, actually, no, these are all tax deed foreclosures. Some counties will have just tax deed foreclosures, and then there's some counties that will have both mortgage foreclosures and tax deed foreclosures on the same website. So there'll be some websites that are completely dedicated to tax deed auctions, and there'll be some auctions that have both the mortgage foreclosure sales and the tax deed sales on this same auction website. And so as you look at this calendar, you're going to be able to read if it says tax deed auction or if it just says foreclosure. You're going to know it's the foreclosure auction, and then of course you're going to want to click on the tax deed auction and then start reviewing the individual auctions. So if we were to click on one of these tax deed auctions, it's going to pull up a list similar to this. You're going to have that basic information, and we're going to use that information to determine which properties we want to bid on. It's going to give us the certificate number. It's going to give us the parcel number. It's going to give us the opening bid amount, the property address, and it also usually includes, this is kind of an older picture, but it also includes many times the assessed value information. So as we look at that opening bid amount versus the assessed value, we're going to get a good idea automatically just by looking at that information if it's a property we'd like to invest into. If it's a property we'd like to, well, maybe we don't know if we want to invest into it yet, but at least has a good bid to value ratio, so that we'll know, hey, this is a property I want to do some more research on. Then we'll go ahead and click on the parcel ID, which in turn will pull up the property record, and then from there we'll start reviewing the property, and if it's a good property, then we'll continue doing due diligence from there. Now, once we've clicked on one of these individual counties, as I mentioned, it's going to pull up the property record. Now, property records look different depending on the county, but it's going to pull up the basic information that we need to find out what these individual properties are. It's going to pull up the address, it's going to pull up the assessed value, the zone classification, any sales that have happened on the property, the owner of record. Many times they're going to have maps, and some counties will include photos as well. We can see these two examples have photos of the property, so we can see, oh, here's two single-family homes. They look like they're pretty clean. I'm going to do some additional due diligence and see what their value is, see if I can get a street view of the properties to give me a little idea of what the property may look like. And so these county records are really what we're going to use to determine, is this a property I want to continue doing due diligence with? So after reviewing an online auction, if you'd like to bid, the first thing you need to do is really register for the sale. Registration only takes a few minutes. It can be done directly on the website. And then after you've registered, you're going to want to set some criteria and then start researching individual investments. And so if you have, between $10,000 to $20,000 to invest, then you're not going to spend a lot of time looking at properties that cost $30,000, because essentially that's out of your budget. You're going to want to look for properties that fit within your budget and then pick out a few properties that are the very best. Usually, if it's possible, and sometimes it may not be because there may not be as many properties at an auction, but usually you want to put together or have as many different good properties as you can. So if there's a tax deed auction that's coming up and maybe they have 50 properties coming for sale, and you have between $10,000 to $20,000 to invest, then I'm going to try to find as many properties as I can that fit within my price range. That way I have as many chances to acquire a decent property at the sale, because there may be, you may narrow that down and say, okay, well, of the 50, I found 5 good properties that fit within my price range. Well, that's better than having one, because if you only have one, that property may be bid up in price. The property may be paid off before the auction, so it's taken off the list. So if you can, it's good to have a couple of different properties that you can bid on, just so that you can stick to your initial plan. And that's one of the most important things about bidding on properties and attending online auctions, is you don't want to get emotionally involved in the property. Once you've set your bottom line and you've done the research, you've determined the price of the property, you've done a comparative market analysis, and I guess when I'm talking here, I'm talking about tax deed investing, because tax lien investing, it's not going to take as much research, because you just need to verify the property has value, it's a good property, and you're really pretty safe, because chances are the investor is going to pay off their delinquent taxes before they lose the property. But when you're looking at tax deed investing, it's going to take additional due diligence, because you're acquiring property. We're talking about real estate investing. And so when you're buying real estate, you want to make sure it's a good property so that you can turn around and sell it and make a profit. To register for RealAuction.com, it's really a pretty simple process. In fact, you could probably go right after this call this evening and go through and register for one of the websites if you'd like. You're just going to need to include your contact information, your mailing address. You'll also only need to register one time. Once you've registered, your username and password will allow you to access any real foreclosure, real tax deed website. So, if you're interested in investing in Manatee tax deed properties, but you also want to check out Polk County, you can use that same username and password. Now, you may need to register for the auction that's coming up, but you can still use that same username and password to get you into the site. So that's RealAuction.com. Bid4Assets is another great source for tax deed investing. You can see here from the website set up a little bit different. You can see some of the different things they offer: the U.S. Marshal Service, the federal, state, and local government, and then right below that it says county tax sales. That's what we'll go ahead and click on to pull up the tax deed auctions that are going to be coming up. So once we click on that county tax sale, it's going to pull up the county tax sale page. Also over here on the right hand side, we're going to have the auction calendar, and we're going to be able to see the different auctions that are taking place, and we'll also be able to click on these individual counties. So if we were to click on Fresno, it would go ahead and pull up the Fresno auction page. We can see here some of the different counties that would be taking place. We can click on any of these counties to pull up that individual page. So once we click on one of those individual links, it's going to take us to the individual county page. So here we see Monterey County, California. Now this page is going to provide us with a lot of the information that we're going to need. They're going to have when the auction takes place. We see April 12th through the 15th. We're going to see the bidding start as low as $11.50. We're also going to see how many properties are being auctioned. In this particular auction, there were 16 properties. As we continue to scroll down the list, we're also going to have additional information that's going to be incredibly important. You can see that they have some different information, the county terms of sale, the California law, and then down here at the very bottom, we're going to have the property list, the auction list, either in PDF or Excel form. Then below that, we're going to have the online files. And we'll go through this process, so we're not going to spend a lot of time going over this slide because we'll just go through and do it live on an actual auction. But we'll be able to download the list here. Then we'll also be able to look at the online files, the online auction files down here below. So if we were to go ahead and click on some of these online auction files, they're separated by batches. And what a batch is that's just a certain amount of properties that they're auctioning at one time. And so what they want to do is they want to stagger their auctions throughout the day. And so we can see that this auction closes at 3:45, or this top batch. The next batch closes at 4 o'clock. The next batch closes at 4:15 and then 4:30. And so a batch is just it's nothing we need to get confused about. We just need to know that it's usually 10, 20 properties that are put together in one batch, and those properties are going to be auctioned, and that auction is going to end at a certain time, and then the next batch will end 15 minutes or half an hour later, whatever they have set up. Now they're not going to give us a lot of information on just the list here with Bid for Assets. And so a lot of times I like to actually download the Excel list, and I'll use the Excel list to narrow down my list, because if they're auctioning 200 properties, it takes a while to go through each one of these batches, and they don't have a ton of information. All they provide you with is just really the county and the parcel number. So I can't even really see how much these individual properties are. And so that's the reason I like to use the Excel files, and I'll show you how to do this later, to save time versus trying to click on each one of these auctions. Now with the auction where there's only 17 properties, it wouldn't take that too much time to go through and click on the individual links. We can also see that there's properties that were withdrawn. Here's a property that was withdrawn, a property was withdrawn. We're not going to spend time researching those because those properties aren't going to be available. But for a larger list, if there's 100 or 200 properties, it could take some time trying to go through and look on each individual one. So it's nice to be able to take that Excel file, look for properties that fit within our price range, and then narrow that list down. And so I may start with 200 properties, and once I've gone through and narrowed that list down, now I just have 10 properties to look at, and that's going to save a lot of time versus going through and looking at each one of these individual files. Now, once we've clicked on one of these individual counties, it's going to pull up the property information. We're just really going to have basic information here. We're going to have the parcel number, the property address. We'll also may have a parcel image. Usually they always have a parcel map. We'll also have the assessed values of the property. So this property, we can see, it has improvement values of $89,000, land value of $26,000 for a total value of $109,000. We can also see the tax bill down here below, and then there may be additional information that we can click on. Down here below, we'll also have the legal information. Really, the most important thing that we're going to look at this point is going to be the property address, because that means that we can research that property. We're going to do some due diligence on it. And then we're also going to have the assessed value. That's the information that's going to be most important. Now, once you've narrowed down this list and found properties that you're serious about, then I'm going to go ahead and research the individual county website and look up each one of these properties in the county records and see what I can find. Now, Bid for Assets won't always have a link that you can just click on to automatically pull up that property record. So we may need to go ahead and take that parcel number, this APN number up here, and then go to the individual county website, go to the property appraiser, and research the real estate that way. So it's just going to depend on the website, but with the information that's available, we're going to use that to determine which properties we're interested in. Then we're going to take those properties we're interested in as the auction gets closer and do more due diligence on them in the county website. So here we can see this is just another view of what we were just looking at. Here at the top is the top part of this. So if we were to kind of scroll up this page a little bit, we're going to have this information right here. We're going to see the minimum bid amount. We're going to see the bid increment, so we can see it's $100. We're going to see when the auction starts, when it ends, and then of course down here below we're going to have some of that other information as well, as far as the address. Some of the websites or counties will provide a photo of the property. It really just depends on the auction. So that's how Bid for Assets works. We're going to go through and look at it live here in a little while, and so we'll go through this process again. Grant Street Group is another large company, and they provide many of the Florida online auctions that are used along with RealAuction.com, and they actually also provide a couple counties in Florida and a couple counties in California, their online auctions. In fact, there's a pretty nice online auction, it's a resale auction happening in California that I'm going to go through and show you because it's what's called a resale. And so these properties are starting with a $100 opening bid. And I was looking at some property today that had $400,000 or $500,000 value properties, starting with an opening bid of $100. And so that's a pretty incredible auction. We'll go through and show you that here later on tonight. So Grant Street Group, they offer tax lien auctions in Florida, Arizona, Maryland, and then they also have tax deed sales, tax deed auctions in Florida, and then a couple of counties in California as well. And what I want to do quickly is look through our questions. I haven't answered any of them yet, so let me see if, oh wow, we got a ton of them. Let me see if I can answer any of them. Here's a good question. Is the county courthouse more thorough and accurate than online? You know, that's a great question. You may be able to get some more information by attending the county courthouse, but really what essentially we're doing is we're just tapping into the county tax records. And so many counties have really gone online that they don't have that same process as far as, you know, going to the Rolodex, almost like the old library where you're pulling out, looking at a card, then trying to pull up that information. You can find additional information from the county courthouse, but we can also get quite a bit of information through many of the online records. And so, you know, it's a great question, but it really just depends on the county, but usually we're going to find more information. I went to Bid for Assets website and looked while you were talking. Do you need to register first to see all the assets? You don't need to register to look at the individual auctions. Many of these auctions you can look at the property before you register, and it's not going to cost you anything to register for most of these as well. So it's really just registering your basic information. Now, if you're buying property participating in the auction, that may be a little bit different, but you can go ahead and register for the individual auctions. Excuse me, register for the individual sites. How exactly do you conduct due diligence? What places docs must be checked so you don't miss anything? That's a great question. We're not going to get into all the due diligence this evening. We're going to go through some of that basic due diligence, and then in a future webinar and some of the past webinars, we'll get into some of that hardcore due diligence before attending an auction. And it really depends on your investment strategy as well. You know, with tax lien investing, it takes a lot less research than through tax deed investing. And, you know, tax lien investing, if I you know, find a good property or has good value, you know, I'm pretty safe in investing in that tax lien certificate. I'm not going to do as much due diligence. But when you're acquiring the property, especially if you're investing, you know, $10,000, $20,000, even more than that, you definitely want to do some additional due diligence. You want to do a comparative market analysis on the property. You want to research the county records, look at past sale information. And really what we're going to use as tax sale investors, one of our major tools that we're going to use is the county records. The county courthouse, you know, if we need to, we may even contact the county and ask them individual questions. We may contact the property appraiser. But that county record, that's going to be one of our main tools that we're going to use as we do our additional due diligence before the auction takes place. You know, the most important thing that we need to determine is value. If the property has value, and then of course also the price that we're going to pay for the property. Okay. Still got a ton of other questions. I'm going to go ahead and just keep going, see if we can get to these a little bit later. Just because we have a ton of information to go through today. So each county is going to have its own website with tutorials and property information. So Grant Street Group auctions are very similar to RealAuction.com. You can see here the introduction, the question and answers, any documents, and then you're going to go ahead and click here to register. If we were to go to click here to register, we're going to, oh, I thought I had a slide there with registration. I guess I don't. You're going to go ahead and click here to register, put in that basic information. They're going to give you a username and password, and then you're going to use that to enter the site. Now, once you enter the site, it's going to have all of the information that we need. We're going to be able to see the different batches that are taking place. You know, if we decide to participate in the auction, we're going to fill out the W-9 form, enter our budget, and submit our deposit. And then also here we're going to have all of the information as far as what's required, and just that basic information. We're going to see the description of the property, the closing date, this auction status, you know, the deposit amount, and we can see that with this particular auction, this is an old picture from an auction that I participated in, but we can see there's 34,000 tax lien certificates. So there's a ton of tax lien certificates. This is in Maricopa, so it's a large auction. But one nice thing about Grant Street Group is it gives you the ability to narrow down the list a little bit. Now with RealAuction.com, you can do that to a degree, but Grant Street Group gives you a little bit more feasibility to do that. I think that there's benefits to RealAuction.com. Very easy to use. Usually includes the parcel information or the county registration links you can click on to view up the property records. But Grant Street Group has the ability to narrow down the list a little bit. And so you can search by different criteria. You can search by the count number, but you can also search by the amount. And so we can go ahead and click the face amount is greater than 1,000, or starts at 1,000, ends at 2,000. And so we can search and narrow that tax list down. So we may have 35,000 tax liens to get started with, but we can narrow down the tax liens from 1,000 to 2,000, or 1,000 to 1,500, or whatever it is, and narrow down that list to a more manageable number of tax lien certificates to start researching. Also, with large auctions like this, as far as Grant Street Group, they're going to set them up in batches. And so, as I mentioned before, a batch is just a certain amount of tax lien certificates. Now, with these batches, they're going to be larger than 10 or 20, like a tax deed sale. The batch may be 100 or 200 or whatever it is. of tax lien certificates in each one of these batches. But we'll be able to narrow down that list and then start researching tax lien certificates within the price range that we're looking. So with this particular one, I narrowed down the list for tax lien certificates between 1,000 and 1,500, and then we have the tax liens listed down here below. Then from there we can click on any of the parcel numbers and start pulling up the individual information on each one of the tax lien certificates. So once we go ahead and click on any one of these parcel numbers, it's going to pull up some of the property assessor's property records over here to the right. So we're going to see the batch number, the advertising number, the account number. We can see the face amount here. Tax lien certificates is 2,195. We'll also have the aerial map that we can click on, and some basic information. We can also click on additional links and review property records as well. So here are some of the property records that will be provided as we just click through these individual tax lien certificates. We can see the site address, the owner year, the owner's address, and also one thing to talk about or just mention quickly as we go through this. One thing you want to look for is what is the site address and what is the owner's address. If the address is the same, well, chances are it's an owner-occupied property. But if they're not the same, then it may be some type of a rental property, or it may be some type of investment property. The owner probably isn't living in that particular property. We can see the land value, we can see the improvement value, the total assessed value, and some of the additional information. Also here to the left, we can look up some of this additional information, including the investor information. The investor information is going to tell us how many bids are on the individual tax lien. So if we're participating in an auction, we can place bids before the auction takes place. So there may be 3 bids already on the property. We can also click on the tax information, which will pull up any of the tax liens. We can see that with this particular tax lien that there was a lien in 2007 and 2008, so we know that this tax lien had 1 year previous lien before that. And so this information is going to be vital in making a good decision on tax lien certificates. But what I'm really going to be looking for, and so if I was looking at this particular property, I'm going to say, okay, well, this property has a land value of 20,000, has an improvement value of 90,000, which tells me this property is worth about $110,000, and that's just the assessed value. So the actual market value is usually going to be higher than that. It may be worth $150,000. And so if I'm spending $2,000 on a property that's worth $150,000, and I'm just pulling those numbers out, that would be a safe investment. Your money's going to be backed by the property, and chances are the property owner is going to pay off the tax lien certificate before losing their property. Now, one of the keys to acquire property through tax lien certificates is that amount that's owed. If a property has 4 years worth of tax lien certificates and they're $5,000 each, and so that all of the delinquent taxes they owe is $20,000 on a $100,000 property, that's going to be harder for a property owner to pay off 20 grand in 3 months as you start that and go through that foreclosure process, 3 to 6 months, than it would be for $2,000. For $2,000, it's going to be easier for a property owner to pay that off versus losing the property versus 20. And so there's different things that we can look for depending on our investment strategy. If your strategy is primarily just to make your interest rate return, get a good interest rate return, then you're going to look at tax lien certificates that have a high likelihood of getting paid off. I mean, most tax lien certificates, 98% of them will pay off before acquiring the property. But there's things you can do that can help increase your chances of getting a property. And you may be able to get that down with, with tax lien certificates like our secondary tax liens that are foreclosure ready, and also looking at, how much is owed as far as what's the total owed on the property. And that may increase your chances where it may even move up to 50-50. Depending on the individual properties of actually acquiring that property. And so it's just a matter of your investment strategy and then looking at the information to determine if this is going to be a good investment for you. Now this is SRI Auctions. They provide tax lien and deed auctions. You can go ahead and click here to register. Very similar. Once you've registered, you're going to put in your username and ID, and you'll be able to get into the website. They primarily offer Indiana tax liens and tax deed auctions. They've also in the past had some Florida over-the-counter tax liens and some Arizona tax liens. But they're not one of the larger providers. Primarily, they're doing Indiana tax lien certificates and tax deeds. I've looked their website recently, and it looks like that they're including some additional, or they're trying to grow their website, so they may be having additional auctions that take place in the future that we can, of course, let you know about. Here's the example of a registration page, and this registration page is very similar to any of the registration pages that you're going to be filling out. You're going to create a username and password, put in your address, your zip, basic information, and then you're going to go ahead and register for the individual website. Here's Tax Sale Portal, and I'm not actually sure if they're going to be going on next year. I've heard rumors that they aren't going to continue doing it, and so I'll let you know on that in the future. But this is just a very similar site to Grant Street Group and RealAuction.com, where you bid online, very similar to some of the other auctions. And they just they really just do Florida tax sales. And so I'm not sure if this company is going to continue doing the online auctions. Really, Grant Street Group and RealAuction are such big boys, they may be kind of pushing them out of the market. But we'll let you know about that. Now, Civic Source is an online auction company that primarily handles Louisiana redemption deeds. They're going to have auctions, be able to see their auction calendar. They have help videos, but really this is just particularly for Louisiana tax sales. Also, there's a couple New York online auction companies, NewYorkAuctionsBid.com, RF Live Bids. These are two auction companies, smaller auction companies. They just handle New York tax deed auctions. And so, we can see Clinton County, Montgomery County. They're going to hold some of these tax deed auctions in these areas in New York, and really offer some pretty good properties if you're interested in New York real estate. This is another auction, and tax-sale, tax-sale.info handles Michigan tax sales. They handle 80% of the Michigan tax sales that take place. Many counties in the state use the service. The auctions are going to be held online, and also they're going to have video viewing available. So when you're bidding on the property, similar, like one of the other auctions, they're also going to have a video camera that's pointed to the auction, and you're going to see the person up there at the front as well, and then you're going to see some of the people that are bidding. And so they actually just take it's a live and online auction at the same time. So there'll be people bidding there at the county courthouse, or many times they actually hold it in a hotel. And then in addition to that, you're going to be able to bid on these properties online. And so it really kind of gives it an auction feel. And there is good opportunities in Michigan tax sales. In fact, I put up a tweet last week, I think it was, about 10 of the most undervalued markets in the country. And some of the areas outside Detroit were in that area, and most people say stay away from Detroit, and I'd recommend that as well, unless you really purchasing the right properties in the right areas. But there's many places in Michigan that offer great property, and in addition to that, you can also pick up these properties for usually a pretty cheap price. And so what we're looking for is you just want to make sure that you're in the right neighborhood, and we'll get into that more in due diligence in another webinar, especially as the auction starts coming up. They're going to have their auction starting in the end of July. But in addition to that, they also have what's called the resale. And the resale is where you can acquire property starting at $100 or starting at $500. In fact, I was able to help an investor last year at the auction purchase $200,000 worth of real estate for about $3,000 or $4,000. And these were, he specifically looked for, valuable building lots within within city limits and some of the other counties throughout Michigan, and was able to do quite well. And so there's different strategies. It completely depends on your investments, but just because you've heard don't invest in Detroit doesn't mean that you want to completely forget about Michigan, because there's great opportunities in many different areas throughout that state. Also, as we go through and find any additional counties that offer online auctions, I just added some more New Jersey online auctions this week. We're always going to be looking and keeping track of any online auctions that are taking place. And so you can really go to one place and see all of the online auctions, regardless of any of the different companies that we talked about. You'll be able to see the auctions and click on those individuals. Counties, be directed to the online auction, register from there if you haven't, and then start bidding on individual properties. As more counties start adding to the online auctions, or including making their tax sale online in an online auction format, that is going to just give us more and more opportunity to invest in online auctions. We can see there I had one of the older pictures there from RealAuction.com, and as far as the tax deed auctions in Florida, it was a very small list, and now that list has grown 4 or 5 times the amount that was originally there. And so they're just continually adding new opportunities, and what that means for us is it means for us we have a better opportunity to purchase property across the country. Now, for individual investors in that county, having the county courthouse may be a little bit better for them, because they live within that county. They can go down to the county courthouse, and it keeps the competition down a little bit, because they're not going to be, they're really just going to be bidding against investors from that county. You're not going to have people across the country investing, but as long as you don't live in that county, and most of us may not. You may live in a county that has an online auction, but I would say that, many of us don't live in those type of areas, or we live in a different state. You may live in Nevada and you want to purchase tax and certificates in Florida. It's not a problem. You can do that through online auctions. Or you may live in, Idaho, but want to purchase California tax deeds. You can do that now without going down and going to the county courthouse and purchasing property there. We're able to do that online, and so it's just made it a lot easier for investors to purchase across the country. I was able to purchase we were able to purchase Florida tax deeds from sitting in the comfort of my office here in Utah. And so there's just a lot of opportunity. There's going to be auctions taking place throughout the country, and it's really just made it a lot easier for investors to invest throughout the world. We've even had investors from other countries that are able to invest in tax and certificates or tax deeds here within the states as well. And so it gives us a wider range of options as investors. Okay, now we're going to get to the more fun part. We're going to start looking at some of these upcoming auctions. We're going to go over and review individual properties. We're going to review upcoming sales, and then we're also going to review some of these online auction companies and kind of go through that process. One thing I'd recommend is, even if you don't plan on investing right now, go through and start reviewing some of these online auctions. Take a half an hour and go through and do some of the process that we're going to go through. It's going to help you become more familiar, and then when it is time, or when you are ready to invest, regardless if that's tomorrow or 6 months from now, you'll have already went through this process, and you'll become more and more familiar with this process. And so as you research one county, it's going to be very similar process. I mean, there may be different things. The websites are going to look different, but the process is going to be the same. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's start looking at some of these online auctions that are going to be taking place. Okay, perfect. Now, the first thing I'm going to do quickly is we're going to go to secretsoftaxlieninvesting.com. If you're on the line tonight, then you have been set up with your username and password. You're going to go ahead and click on the Member Center type in your username, your password. The password for all of you has been set as Tax Lien, TAXLIEN. One thing as well that you can do, if you want to add or change your account information at all, you can go up here to this top button that says Create Account. If you go ahead and click on Create Account, you can go ahead and edit your account information, and you can change your password right here. And so if that's something you want to do, you can go ahead and do that. I just set it Tax Lien is the default password. If you'd like to change it, you can go ahead and go up to the account information, put in additional information if you'd like to. You can include your address and city, and click Apply Changes, and it'll go ahead and apply that. You can also click on Change Password and change your password right here to something that you'd like, if you'd like to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and click on the Member Center. Once we click on the Member Center, we're going to have some of the different links that we can click on to review information. Here we have the Training Center. Excuse me. We have the auction calendar right here. We have the online auction tab here, which is what we're going to focus on tonight. We have the over-the-counter list tabs here, and then the state profiles right here. The Training Center is where we're going to have any of the videos. So tonight's webinar will be posted here in the video library. We'll go ahead and have the video of the week. Each week I put up the previous week's webinar right here. You can go ahead and click that, and then down here below you can click on any of the links to review the webinars. These are the long webinars here. Down here are short training videos, and of course we're always updating and adding new additional information. For this particular webinar, we're going to be going through some of the online auction information, so we're going to go ahead and click on online auctions. Once we click here, we can see we can click on Tax Lien Certificate Online Auctions, Tax Deeds, and Redemption Deed Auctions. What we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and click on Tax Deed Auctions. Now once we click on Tax Deed Auctions, we're going to see some of the auctions that are coming up. I'm going to have them listed by just in alphabetical order. You know, California is the first county that has an online auction, the first state that has online auctions. If Arkansas had online auctions, then it'd be Arkansas, but right now it's just California, so we start at California. From there, then the auctions are going to be listed by date. You know, we can see July 11th down to October 23rd, and the different counties that are going to be holding their auctions. This first group is going to be the bid for asset auctions. Here are the bid for asset companies, the bid for asset counties, I mean. And then down here below are some of the counties that hold, that Grant Street Group, that the counties use the Grant Street Group software to conduct their auction. And we can see that San Bernardino has their auction coming up on August 3rd. And I was actually very, very surprised with the amount of properties that they're going to be auctioned. Down there below, we have the Florida counties that hold tax deed auctions. We have the Michigan auctions. In fact, I got to update this list past August 15th because this list is actually quite a bit longer, but we just go to August 15th right now. But we can also click right here to pull up the auctions that are going to be taking place. And we can see the New York auctions coming up, the Washington tax deed auctions coming up. If we were to click on Tax Lien Certificates, then we're going to see the Tax Lien auctions coming up. And as you see here where it says County Held Sell Now Open, these are going to be the over-the-counter tax liens that you can purchase right now. So we can see Florida, RealAuctions. Here are some of the county sell auctions that are taking place. Here's Grant Street Group with their county held tax sales. These are over-the-counter tax liens that can be purchased directly off these websites. So you're not going to be researching a hard list and then, you know, sending in your information to the county and sending in your check. You have the ability to purchase these tax liens directly off the website. And then, of course, down here below, we can see some of the other online auctions that are going to be taking place: Illinois, Maryland, Nebraska. And then New Jersey has really added a lot of counties to their websites, or a lot of cities to their online auctions. You know, in New Jersey, they don't sell tax lien certificates. Well, they do. Some of the counties will sell tax lien certificates, and then some of the cities and townships will sell tax lien certificates as well. So it just really depends on the individual cities, or if it's held by the county, but we're going to see some of the auctions coming up and when the site opens, depending on when that date is coming. And some auctions have been taking place. Once they have their new one, then we go ahead and change that date to the current date. So what we're going to do first is we're going to look at some of the California tax deed auctions that are coming up. So what I'm going to do first is we're going to go ahead and click on Grant Street bid for assets. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to the home page so we can start from the beginning. So here's the home page of the California tax deed auctions. Well, actually, this is the home page of bidforassets.com. So we can see, here are some of the different things that they offer. The U.S. Marshal sale, no reserve homes, bank-owned properties, storefront, federal, state, local government, and then of course right here is county tax sale. We're going to go ahead and click on the county tax sale. Now once we click on the county tax sale, we're going to see the auction calendar over here to the right. And so we can see that, here's California auction, MODOC, starting 11th through the 14th. We can see on the 27th to the 28th, there's Thurston County, Washington. August 3rd, Pierce, and then we can just go down and we can see any of the auctions that are taking place. And so from here, what we can do is we can go ahead and click on some of these individual cities or individual counties to pull up the county tax sale list. So we see this particular county has 7 tax defaulted properties. Bids start as low as $50, so they have some properties starting at a very low price. And with 7 properties, it'd be pretty easy just to click here and go through these parcels and review each one of them. Now, on the other hand, some of these other cities might have quite a few more properties. So here we can see Tulare has 164 tax defaulted properties. So this is a lot larger list. We can't just click on those individual links and see what they are. We could, but it's going to take a lot more time. We can see the auction starts August 6th and ends August 10th. Bids start at $1,300. As we continue to scroll down, we're going to have the information that we're going to want to review if we plan on bidding there, the California law, county terms of sale, county facts, and then we also have the property list in Excel and PDF. Now, if we're to go ahead and download this Excel list, it's going to pull up the auction list. Now, one thing I've talked about before as far as using the quick glance method of reviewing a tax sale list, and I think we have a video on that website that you can go back and review. And we also did a couple of the first webinars, well, not the first webinars, but the webinars that we did a month or two ago that'll go through how to really use the quick glance method. But essentially what we're doing is we're looking at a large list and we're condensing the list down to properties that we're interested in. So as we're looking at this list, go ahead and open this list up a little bit. As we're looking at this tax sale list, we're going to have information that we're going to review. First here, we can see the auction ID. In addition to having the auction ID here, you can see that we have links that we can click on to pull up the information on bid for assets. That's actually pretty sweet. That makes it a lot easier than researching the list after or taking the auction ID number and looking it up individually. Then we're going to have the APN number, the parcel number, the county item number, the legal description is going to be right here, and then we have the minimum bid amount. That's going to be an important thing for us because, this is going to determine which properties we're going to bid on. If you have $5,000, then you're going to look at tax deeds up to $5,000. If you, whatever that investment bracket is, if you have $50,000, then you're going to look at properties up to $50,000. We're going to have the auction date here, the property address, the acreage, exemptions, fixtures, improvements, and land value. These are 2 important things that we're going to be looking at. It's going to tell us a lot about the property. Then also we have the total assessed value. And so what sometimes I'll do with a list like this is I'm not interested in some of this information, at least not right now. I'm not interested in the county item number. I'm not interested in the legal description, so I may just go ahead and delete that information. I can always download a new list, so it doesn't matter if you change it up. Then from there, I'm not interested in the auction end time. I'm just trying to condense this list down, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that information. From there, I may go ahead and delete some of this information. Tax rate. I may leave this here just so I know if there's an IRS lien on a property. Usually I recommend not bidding on a property if there's an IRS lien. If you're a brand new investor, if you've done it before, it's not the end of the world because you will usually get the property. It's just a matter. It's just going to take a little bit more time essentially. The IRS has a time frame to pay you back and take ownership of the property. Usually they don't. But if you're a brand new investor, I'd try to avoid it. But if you ended up purchasing, it's not necessarily the end of the world. Now what we're going to do is we're going to look at this list and we're going to find properties that fit what we're looking for. If you're a brand new investor, you may not want to look at properties that have no site address, unless it has a real high value. But what we're looking at is we're looking at that minimum bid amount, and we're looking at that total assessed value. Now the improvement information is going to tell us if there's a structure on the property. So with this individual list, we may go ahead and say, well, this one doesn't have a site address, so I'm going to erase that. These ones don't have a site address, so let's go ahead and erase those. And then I'm just going to go through this process and eliminate properties that I'm not interested in investing into, or I'm not interested in researching or spending more time on. Now we can go ahead and look at this in a little bit with a little bit additional information. From here we can see, okay, here's the minimum bid amount, here's the total assessed value. So here we see a property, a $24,000 opening bid, total value $156. We can go ahead and click on this this parcel number to pull up the property information. So once we click on that, we can see some of this information. We can see it has improvement value of $86,000, land value of $69,000, and then we also have the address listed right here. So we can go ahead and take that address and go to Google Maps and do a quick search on the property. Okay, so once we click on that, it's going to pull up a earth view of the property. I'm going to go ahead and click on the earth view, see what the property looks like overhead. Obviously looks like it's some type of cabin or summer home. Then we can also click on the street view of the property and see what it looks like from here. So here we can see the property's off the street a little bit. One thing you'll also want to look at is down here at the bottom, because that's going to tell us the image capture. So this image capture was way back in 2007. Usually they're not that old. Usually they're just a couple of years. Sometimes, many times I've looked at them and they're within the last year or two. But this tells us this is a very old picture. So if we're going to spend $24,000, we're either going to want to, we're going to want to get a newer picture of the property. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to go out there and look at the property yourself. There's different ways that you can do that, and we've talked about that in some of the other webinars. We don't have time to go to all the details, but even just hiring somebody to go and take a couple of pictures, putting an ad in Craigslist or some classified ad saying, hey, I'll pay you $50 to go out and take a few pictures of a property. And there's a lot of people that are always looking to make, a couple of extra dollars. And so if you can, help them make a couple of extra dollars, and they're going to go out and take out some current photos for you, maybe even do a little evaluation or look at the property as best they can, that's going to give you a lot of additional information to make a decision on the property. Then you'll also want to go through and, of course, do the comparative market analysis. But from here, we can go ahead and take that address and we can search it on Zillow.com. Go ahead and type the address in. It's going to pull up the estimated value. So we can see this property has an estimated value of about $219,000. As we continue to scroll down, we can also see that, of course, that it's in Kings National Park. So this is you know, some type of cabin, summer type property within the national park. Also down here below, we can look at comparable homes. This is a good tool to use to find recently sold or for sale properties that are similar, and you can use those properties to do a comparative market analysis. We go through how to do the comparative market analysis in our home study program, and you can go through and review how to be able to do that and determine exactly what that property value is. But just based on the little information we have, and of course we do additional due diligence, you know, if we're looking at a property with a $24,000 opening bid, estimated value of 219, even an assessed value of 156, would that be a good bid to value ratio? Well, just based on the information we have, yeah, it would be a pretty good value. You know, 24,000 even versus just 156, that's about 20% of the property's value. You know, if you can acquire real estate for 20% of its value, you can turn around and make money even if you just sold it at half price. And really what we would do is we'd go through this process with this entire list, and we'd of course look at this value here. You know, some of it is going to be improvement value, some of it will be land value with that total value, or we may also be looking at land. You know, one thing I can say is don't be afraid of investing in land. Land many times is one of the safest investments as long as there's good value. You know, because you don't need to worry about, hey, does this property, you know, what does this property need? How much work is it going to take? You know, land is land. You can turn around and sell a building lot. You know, if I'm looking at a $100,000 home and a $100,000 building lot, they're both in good markets and they're both easily, you know, they're both easy to sell, or they're both in an area where I could sell them. You know, the land is going to be a lot less headache. You know, you can just have somebody go out there and put a sign in there and market it online, versus having to show the property and maybe add paint or whatever it is to fix the property up depending on your strategy. And so don't be afraid to invest in land, because land is a great asset. And it's an easier asset as far as some of the work that's going to be involved. And so we could go through, and we're really going to be looking at that opening bid amount versus the value of the property. Here's an opening bid amount of $14,000. The property has a value of $129. Here's one for $47,000. The property has a value of $398. You know, that would be a good bid to value ratio. And then of course we could click on any of these links to find out more about the individual properties. So with this property, we can see that it has fixture improvement, and land value as well. And then of course we would go through the same process. We have so many different areas to look at tonight. Also, I want to quickly show you San Mateo County. Let's go ahead and click off those quickly. So here's the San Mateo list. They're not going to have as much information as the last list. So really what we're going to be basing our decisions on is just that minimum bid amount, and then also if there's a property address, because they don't have the assessed value on this particular list. So we can see a property here with a value of opening bid of $27,000. We can see it's in South San Francisco, and then of course we have the address listed right here. Now, as I mentioned, one thing that's nice about this list, or these lists here, is I can go ahead and click on this number to pull up the individual property information on the Bid for Assets website. So we can see here, here's the property right here. Here's a photo of the property. We can see it has an opening bid of $27,000. We see the address listed right here, and then there's also some links we can click on. We can click on the parcel image. See the property there. Looks like a very nice property. We can click on the parcel map. We can click on the GSI information. But what we want to quickly do is go ahead and do a Zillow search. In fact, we actually looked at this property last week. I remember seeing it because the property values were incredible. So here we're looking at a property that the property values a 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath, worth $1.2 million. You know, is a $27,000 investment on a property that's worth $1.2 million. Is that a good investment? Well, obviously it's an incredible investment. I mean, even if you could acquire this property, if it is valued at 1.2, and we can see that a lot of these properties are valued in that area, so it's probably pretty close to what the property value is. It's amazing the real estate prices in that area within some parts of California. But even if you spent 300,000 or 400,000 or 500,000, there'd still be huge room for profit on this individual type of property. You know, my general rule when investing in tax deeds or tax deed properties is the higher the property value is, the higher you can go up as far as that bid to value ratio. You know, if you're investing into a tax deed property that's worth, let's say it's a building lot and it's worth 10 grand. Well, if it's worth about 10 grand, you know, you're not going to want to bid that up to 50% of its value. You're going to want to try to get it for 10 or 20% of its value, so that there's plenty of room there for you to make profit, because the margin is smaller. You know, if you picked it up for 2,000, well, then you've got $8,000 worth of room there, as far as turning around and selling it and making a profit. So if you turn around and sold it for 4,000, you would be able to make, you know, $2,000 profit if you turn around and sold it for 8,000. And so that's going to, you know, you don't have as much to work with. If you ended up spending $5,000 for a property that's worth 10,000, you know, that's not going to give you very much room for profit. But on the other hand, on a property that's worth 1.2, in a market like this, you could go up to $500,000. You can go up to 50% of its value, because it's such an valuable property. So there's such a larger room for profit. You can make $500,000 on this type of property, and usually you'll see that happen as well. You know, I would be very surprised if this property sold for $27,000. You know, it's probably going to get bid up to a couple $100,000 at least, just because you're looking at, you know, a single family home worth 1.2. And what we could do is go through, and I'm sure that there's many properties in here that are on incredible pieces of, you know, here's another single family home here, opening bid 34,000. Oh, this one was withdrawn, so it's no longer available. It looks like it was some type of auto body shop. And we could go down any of these lists, and we're going to focus on another one withdrawn, so we don't. And then, of course, if it's withdrawn, I'm just going to go ahead and erase it from my list, so I don't worry about clicking on that property again. This might be some type of building lot. But we would go through the list and look at, here's a property with a $1 million opening bid. Here's a property with a $233,000 opening bid amount. Let's go ahead and click on this last one, and then we're going to move on to another county. Okay, so here we see, looks to be like a custom single family home. We can click on the parcel image. We can see the large property right here. And then, of course, we could go ahead and do a Zillow search just to get a ballpark idea of what the property may be worth. Okay, so here's a property, you know, that has an estimated value of over $4 million. God, the real estate there is. Every time I go here, I just get surprised by how high the real estate values are. So here you're looking at a property with a $4 million, you know, estimated value. Of course, you're looking at $233,000 opening bid, but still, you're looking at huge amounts of profit. And then we see some of the different properties here. You know, here's a property with an opening bid of $2,500, and it does have an address. And so, just really depending on what you have to work with. And of course, this is a nicer. I mean, you're talking about San Francisco area, so property values, of course, going to be quite a bit higher. But you could go through and look at any of these individual properties. Now this property here, we can see it's 1.6 acres. We see it's some type of you know, commercial land piece. But that's really the process that you're going to go through as you review these individual lists. And so you're going to go ahead and decide, you know, what price range are you looking for. You know, if you have $5,000 to spend, then you're going to look at all these properties up to $5,000, and try to find the very best ones within this list. Okay. Also, we can see the reoffer sales here. Many times when they have the reoffer, that's where they'll start, and not always, but many times they're going to start at an opening bid amount, like a $500 opening bid amount or a $100 opening bid amount. And to show you that, I want to show you this San Bernardino auction that's coming up. So here we can see that there's an auction coming up in August in San Bernardino, and of course this time they're going to be using the Grant Street Group website. So for this particular California auction, we're not going to be using Bid for Assets, we're going to be using Grant Street Group. And I'm really surprised by the amount of properties that they're auctioning off. You can see there's 375 properties on the 3rd, 373 on the 4th, 374 on the 5th, 376 on the 6th, and 233 on the 7th. So this is a massive, massive auction. And in addition to that, we can go ahead and click on any of these individual days, and we can see, you know, there's 370 properties for sale. Now we can go ahead and click on these parcel ID information to pull up some of the information, but what I like to do, especially since they don't give you quite as much information, you know, if we were to click on this, we're just really going to see basic information. A lot of it's going to be hidden. And so what I like to do is I like to pull up this list. We can go ahead and do that by clicking right here, download, and it's going to pull up the list for us. So here is the very first list for the 3rd, 375 properties that we've just downloaded. And so we're going to really go through that same process that we just went through in determining the property values. But one thing I want to point out quickly is look how much the opening bid is, $100. This is a resale. I love these kind of auctions because it gives you a chance to bid on properties at a very, very low opening bid amount. This is a resale. So these properties have already been auctioned or have already been offered for sale. They didn't sell for the opening bid amount. And the opening bid amount may have been, you know, quite a bit high. There's many different reasons why it may not have sold. But we know that these properties are all going to start with an opening bid of $100. And so what I'll usually do is I'll kind of take that same process we did with the other list, and I'm going to erase information that's not important to me just so I can kind of narrow it down. I'm going to take off the legal description just because most of us don't know how to read it. Because of my involvement in real estate, it makes sense to me, but even then I'm not going to need it for this. I'm going to go ahead and erase some of these things that I don't need to know the opening bid amount. I don't need to know the closing date. I just want to get to the information that's important, the information that I'm going to use to determine the properties. And so here we're starting to look at some of that information. We see the land value there, the improvement value, the total assessed value. Then we also have the address listed right here. And then of course we have the parcel numbers listed right here as well. We can go ahead and use this parcel number and go into the county website and research the individual property records once we've picked out some properties that we're interested in. But what's nice about this is we're going to see that, you know, all of these properties start with a $100 opening bid. And if we look over here on the far end, we can see the assessed values of these properties. You know, we see property 45, 61, 30, 330, 390, 150, 47, 28, 147, 428, 66. So there's going to be different properties at all kinds of different price range here. Of course, the improvements are going to tell us properties that have a structure on it. If the property doesn't have a structure, then we're going to know that it's pretty much land. But that doesn't mean that some of these properties, even here like this one right here, with the $15,000 value, you know, if it's a good piece of land, if it's a usable piece of land with a $100 opening bid, you know, that may be a great property. You just don't know. When you're starting with that low bid amount, it gives you a lot more opportunity to start researching property and making the decision that way. So here we can see the street address, and what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and copy that and kind of go through that same process. One thing I like about Google Earth is it gives us, you know, it'll pull up the properties that are most likely it. So here I've just got part of the address. Of course, it's in San Bernardino. So we're going to go ahead and click on that. It's going to pull it up there. See that it's right here. I'm going to go ahead and click on the street view. I believe it may be this property right here. But let's go ahead and do this. Let's take that address and let's go ahead and search it and see if we can pull up anything on Zillow. And what we're primarily doing here, guys, right now is we're just doing our basic research. That first individual research as we start looking through and kind of going through that process. You know, once we've made our decision, we found properties we're interested in, then we're going to do additional due diligence. So with this, it doesn't look like I'm able to pull up the property. So it may be a commercial property. It's probably actually this property right here across the street. That makes sense, because it's boarded up. So it's probably this little commercial property right here. But of course, we're looking, you know, at $100 opening bid. And what we could do from there is we'd go down this list and look at properties with that do have addresses. Now, if they don't have an address, we can go ahead and look up the property on the county record to find out more about it. But for this example, we're just going to look at some of the properties that have addresses. Oh, what am I doing there? Let's go ahead and start back over. Okay, so it's not pulling up the information there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click on that city information. That's going to help narrow down the search for me. And then we're able to get it right there. Let me see. And with the information that's provided, it looks like there's a west and an east on this particular highland. So we need to look, both of them are going to the county records to pull up the individual information. Let's look at this one here, Needles. And what's incredible about this auction is just the amount of property that is coming up for sale. I mean, you know, there's over 1,000 properties at this auction, which also means that there's going to be a lot of properties. So with that many properties, that helps us as far as the competition. You know, if there was only 10 properties or 20 properties for sale, that's going to hurt the amount of competition because of the individual. There's only going to be so many properties, so there's going to be a lot of investors that are investing in those properties. I just happen to be clicking on the wrong ones that are more commercial properties. I want to look at for a single family home that we can start looking at. I saw some earlier, so I was going through it. So here we have the property. We can see it right here. Now with this particular property, they don't have a street view. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and copy that. We're going to go back to Zillow and see if we can find any information on it. Okay, so here we were able to pull up the information on this property. We can see it's valued at $242,000. It's 647 square foot single family home, 3 bedroom, 2 bath. We can see it sold back in 1997 for $120,000. So with this particular property right here, we're looking at a property with starting at $100 opening bid. We can see it has an assessed value of 116, has an estimated value of 240, and if we were interested in keeping that property on our list, or we may highlight the property, we could put any notes on the property, and really what we do is we'd go through this list, and we can see all of these different properties here. Here's Arrow Bear Park. We can see what those individual properties are. These property values, these are probably some type of building lots or land lots. And we just go through and look at the property values and find properties that have a good value, and then of course look to be a good property. So even a building lot that may have a value of $10,000 may be a good investment if you're spending $100 for it. And so it's really just to look at, as long as if you're looking at two different pieces of land, and one is a small strip of land behind behind a row of homes, that property probably doesn't have very much value, or even if it does have some value, there's not any use. And as long as the property has a value compared to what you're paying, and there's a use for the property. So if we're looking at a small strip of land that doesn't have any use, but we're looking at a building lot that has some type of use, that's a buildable building lot, well, the building lot, even if those properties are valued at the same on the county level, the building lot has use, which means that we can turn around and sell that property. And so we don't really have the time to go through this entire list, but really that's what you could do, is you can go through and look at these individual properties, and we're just looking at one of the list of 5 different lists that are going to be available, or going to be auctioned in this particular upcoming auction. And we can see that there's properties here with some serious value as well, in addition to many different land lots. So that's really going through and reviewing some of the California auctions. Let me check the time. Okay, let's go through and let's review. Also, one thing, if you're interested in this particular auction, you're going to want to go through, review the terms of sale, just review all of this information. Go ahead and click on the auditor right here, the treasurer and tax collector, with the individual county as we're doing our research. Also, one thing, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but I do want to show it to you guys quickly, and that is the upcoming Michigan sales. I was trying to remember my username and password. It's on my computer at home. Otherwise, we would have logged in. One thing that's nice about the Michigan sales, which is different than pretty much anywhere in the country, or most areas in the country, New York does it sometimes as well, but the counties are going to have all kinds of additional information. There may be even photos of inside the property. They may have notes as far as, they're going to have notes as far as the condition of the property. This is a big time fixer-upper. This property is in great shape. They're going to let us know about the current situation. If there's a tenant in the property, they'll let you know. And so they actually have a ton of information that helps for investors that don't necessarily live in that area. So you can go ahead and click on any of these individual counties. And because I can't remember my username and password, I can't log in right now. But once you go ahead and look at these individual properties, it's just going to give you basic information here. Here we see an old Riverside party store, now apartments. Once we were to go ahead and click on more details, it's going to give us additional photos. I was looking at some of these properties last night when I was in my computer at home. And, it has additional photos, it has information. They go through and really kind of do an evaluation on each one of the properties, and we can see some of that right here. But vacant lot on, vacant land on nice corner lot, old Riverside party store. And so that's going to give us, just even right here, 2-story house, beyond need for TLC, so this house is probably in pretty rough shape. And we can go through and read the individual information. Of course, this is a more rural county here, but we go through this process and look at any of these individual auctions. Now, once we get into, through the first sales, then they're going to get into the resales, and that's where they're going to start auctioning property similar to the California auction, starting at a lower opening bid amount. So they may start the opening bid amount at $100 or $500 or $300, whatever the county decides. They're going to start that opening bid amount. But really, you can see all of the different counties here. You can go through the registration process, very similar, and you can click on any of these counties and start reviewing some of the properties. My goodness, that one is overrun. But that might be a clean little property. We can see it's on 13.9 shapers, home in good shape with attached garage. Occupied mobile home. And you just go through this same process and look for properties that fit your investment objective based on the individual properties. So they provide, these are current pictures. On these individual properties. Okay, so let's go ahead. Let me go back here quickly. Okay, let me see if I can answer a few of these questions. There's about 27 days left for San Mateo. Would you start doing more thorough research on the properties you're interested in? What I'll usually do is I'll do some of the basic research right now and kind of narrow down that list. So maybe I, take that list down. If it was 10 properties, I'm just saying whatever number, down to the 10 properties, and then from there, once I've determined those 10 properties, then from there, as the auction gets closer, then I would do, that additional due diligence. I'd start within a week, 2 weeks, kind of around that time frame. And the reason I say that is the last thing you want to do is spend hours researching an individual property that you may not even go, that may get paid back before it attends the sale. And so really you'll start doing that major due diligence within a week to 2 weeks before the auction, just so that helps your chance of having the property actually be available during the sale. Okay. See if I can. And I wish they made the question answer. You just see it a little bit. We have quite a few of them. Let's go ahead and spend some more time going through this, and we'll see if we can answer some more here in a minute. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's go back to Secrets of Tax Lien Investing. And from here, we're going to go ahead and review some of the auctions that are coming up. So here we see the Florida tax deed auctions. We also see the Washington, the New York. Here we see a property with a $13,000 opening bid in Washington using bid for assets. What I want to do, let's go ahead and go to tax lien quick, and then we'll finish with Florida tax deeds. So here's tax lien certificates. And here are some of the online tax lien auctions as far as the county sale auctions. So Florida held their auctions in May and June of this year, and so now they have their county held sales open. So we can see the different auctions that are coming up or that are taking place, and we can go ahead and click on. I'm trying to remember what county I was looking at earlier today. For the life of me, I can't remember which one it was. There was a couple of tax liens I wanted to show you. Well, let's just go ahead and click on Columbia to begin with. It doesn't matter, we can go through the process. So once you've registered, you can go ahead and click on Purchase County Held Certificates, and go ahead and pull up that list. Of course, you'll just put in your username and password, and then you'll go ahead and pull up the list. Now you can see the list here is quite a bit different as far as some of the other lists. We're just going to have the certificate number, the tax year, the certificate year, and then also the parcel ID, and then the face amount. And this O also means that there's outstanding tax and certificates on the property, and that's something that we're going to want to look at if you're investing into over-the-counter tax liens, and really any type of tax lien. Is you want to find out how many other tax and certificates are on the property. Now, if there's additional tax liens, that doesn't always necessarily a bad thing. And in fact, it may increase your chances of actually acquiring the property if you took it through the foreclosure process. But but you do want to know how much are those additional tax liens. How much is that? So that way you can make a decision if it's a good tax and certificate or not. Now, when I get to a list like this, we can see that that there's 135 pages. What I'll usually do is click on the face amount so that I can start searching by price. If I'm looking for tax liens between $800 to $600, then here are the taxing certificates that I may look at, and I could go through and click on the next page and continue going through these taxing certificates, looking at each one of them. And so if I was to go ahead and click on one of these tax liens, it's going to pull up the property record information. You can see here, so looks like just a building lot from what I can tell. We can see the site address listed right there. We can see the property value here. And also, one thing to note is many times the property value, especially with land, is going to be underassessed, especially with taxing certificates in areas like Florida, where they overinflated the market for so many years. Many of the counties, especially tax properties where they may have been delinquent for a few years, they're going to lower those assessed values to lower the tax lien amount, the property taxes that an owner has to pay to help them catch up. And so, this property may have a value of $16,000 right here, but it may be worth closer to 25. Just really depends on the property. But we're going to see the information here. We're going to see the sales information. We see it sold in 1999, started in 1978, and then sold at different prices. We can see this last sold in 1993 for $11,000. We can also see right here that there's actually a mobile home on the property. It was built in 1980. It looks like it's below average, which means that it probably not the best individual property as far as the mobile home condition. But what we can do is we can go ahead and take that address and we can research it. Also, one thing we'll want to look at is we can see, okay, here's the address. It's on Southeast Davis Street versus the property owner's address, which is on Hamilton Street. So we know that this property is not owner occupied. From there, we can go ahead and go through that same process. And I'll have to go back to see what this individual city is. And if you're not exactly sure on the city, sometimes I'll just go ahead and put in the county. So we know this is Columbia. And here we can see 143 Southeast Davie Court, Lake City, Columbia. See if that's the same property or not. Yep, it is on Davis Court. So they actually had it wrong right here. It's actually on Davis Court. We can see it down here with the map. So we can see the property right here. We can go ahead and click on the street view. And either that is probably our property we're looking at right here. So, we do a valuation. Is this tax and certificate worth our investment? We could do a quick search and see what kind of values the properties are selling for within this area. what they've estimated this property to be worth. Actually, probably a little bit too long. Go ahead and copy it that way. And then we'll go ahead and search it. So we can see that it has an estimated value of about 39,952 square feet mobile home. And so, purchasing a tax lien certificate is going to be worth it to purchase it. County has the assessed value at about 17,000. It's probably worth somewhere between 17 and 40, somewhere within there. And we could do a comparative market analysis, find some of the properties within this area that have sold that are similar to this trailer, and come up with a pretty good idea of what the property would actually be valued at. And then from there would determine, hey, is a $700 tax lien, is that going to be a good investment? Well, depending on how many tax certificates, it's probably going to be a pretty safe investment, because even though it's only worth $30,000 or $40,000, the property owner probably won't want to lose it for $700. And so you just really go through this process. Now with here, the O, we can see that it has outstanding tax lien certificates. This property doesn't have an O. Of course, it's not unavailable, but some of these won't have the outstanding tax liens, and that means it's his first year tax lien. So there's not any other tax liens except for that individual tax lien certificate. So that's the RealAuction process. We can also see the Grant Street Group tax lien certificates down here below. We could click on any of these counties as well and purchase any of the over-the-counter tax lien certificates. So we can see the tax liens here. You could also go ahead and download it here if you wanted to, or you could go through the process and you can see some of the different categories that you can use over here to the side. So if you're looking for 2014 tax lien certificates, you can click here. 2013. You can use different codes that are available. You can also take the purchase amount. Here we have tax liens from $19,000 up to $67,000. Assessed value from $10,000 up to $259. Yeah, $259, I think. Have to check. But this is probably the lowest tax the lowest assessed value to the very highest assessed value on this list in those numbers. So we could say, okay, we want tax liens from $1,000 to $2,000 or whatever those numbers are, and then go ahead and search that list that way. We could also search from assessed value here and pull up the tax lien certificates that are valued. And so let's say from 30,000 to 200. Might need to be logged in to do the search. I think I probably do. But then we go ahead and pull up the tax liens within that area. We can see here's a tax lien for $67,000. Go ahead and click on that tax lien. It's going to pull up the property information. We can see that this property is, looks like it has a value of $2.6 million. We can see it's offering an 18% interest rate. It has a face amount of $55,000. And then from there, we can go ahead and click on the tax collector's website to pull up additional information on the tax lien certificate. See the property here. We can see the basic information here as well, worth 2.3. And then we can also, where is it at? Click on the property appraiser's website and pull up additional information on the property. So here we get into some of the property records. We can see that it's land. There's no building value, so it's $2.79, $2.8 million worth of land. You can see the property owner here, the mailing address here, the site address right here. We could also click on the map view and look at some additional information on the property. So this large piece of property right here. And we can go through this process really with any of these tax lien certificates that we're looking at. And then from there, you can go ahead and click on the cart and then purchase the tax lien if it's a good investment. So here, this tax lien we're looking at is a $1,300 tax lien. It's offering an 18% interest rate. You can see them has a market value of about $56,000. Go ahead and go through that same process. Click on the tax collector's information. My goodness, it looks like it's out in the middle of the water. Want to be a little bit careful. Let's go ahead and click on the property appraiser and see what we've got here. So here we have the address listed right here. We can see it has a land value, so it's some type of piece of land. We can see that it sold back in 2005, then sold in 1996. You can also see that it looks like it may have sold through a tax deed. So this may be a property that just keeps getting reissued or resold. So we'd want to make sure that may be something that we want to check in to make sure that we're not purchasing a tax lien that is just kind of re-going through the motion because it's up in the middle of a lake or it's not sellable. You don't see this all the time, but you do occasionally see it, and it does look like it's possibly out here in the middle of a lake. So that's probably we're not going to spend any time researching. And so that's the reason it's important to just go through. I don't see this very often. In fact, I haven't seen that for quite a few years. But that's going to tell us a lot about that individual property. We're not going to spend any time researching it. So that's the over-the-counter tax lien process. Let's go ahead and spend the rest of our time looking at some of the upcoming tax deed auctions. Oh, one thing as well, I guess I can go quickly and we could check out while we're here in New Jersey. And we're going to go to and look at Point Pleasant. Just looking to find it. I forgot where it's at. There's so many different. There it is, Point Pleasant. We can see the site opens on 5/29. So we're going to go ahead and click on the site. Now, once we get to the site, we're going to click on the bidding rules so we can see when this auction takes place. We can see that it's going to be held on 7/27. So it's going to be held on the 27th of this month. Of course, if we're interested, we'd read about how they handle it. It starts at 18%, bids down. We're going to read the information. And then, of course, we can start researching or previewing the items for sale. And so we can see the individual tax lien certificates here. I'm going to go ahead and click on face amount just so, I can start with it, whatever price range. And of course, with an auction like this where we're just talking about, the Point Pleasant town or township or borough, we're going to see that there's not quite as many properties. I mean, it looks like there's 403 tax lien certificates, and there may be only 200 or 300 available. We can see the different tax lien certificates here, what prices they're starting at. Looks like there's some here in about $7,000, and from there we can go ahead and click on this information. From here, we'd go ahead and put in the location if we want to pull up the information, but we can also click on this tab over here that's going to give us some of that basic information. So we can see here's the property address right there. We can see it has an assessed value of 306, building value of 131, with of course a land value of 175. So overall we're really looking at a decent little property here as far as the value is concerned. We can click on the location map. We can see that the property is located right here. We can click on larger map if we want to go ahead and try pulling it up on the full Google Maps view. So we see the property located right here. We also have that address listed. So we're going to copy that. We're going to go ahead and click on the street view. So we're looking at this nice little property right here. It's coming up. It has the tax lien auction. You're going to be able to purchase a tax lien certificate on this property. And so this tax lien certificate that we're looking at, go back to the tax details, is a $7,000 tax lien certificate. So, they're a pretty high tax lien as far as the value but as far as just one tax and certificate, but we're looking at this property right here, and then from there we're going to go ahead and check out the property value to give us a better indication. But we know that the county's assessed it at $300,000. So is there $7,000 protected? Well, yes, your $7,000 is protected. We can see that the property has a estimated value at 302, so it's actually a little bit lower than the county has assessed the value. And then we can also see these different things here. These are properties that have sold or are currently for sale as well. So we can see the different properties and determine, hey, yeah, this, here's quite a few properties that have sold within this area that are similar. So is your, the question to ask yourself is your $7,000 protected by this property value of 306? And I would say yes. You're pretty protected, because worst case scenario, well, or best case scenario, depending how you look at it, but if you acquired that property, could you turn around and make a profit? Obviously, you could make a good profit on that property. I've realized that I've gone on for 2 hours now, so we're really kind of running out of time. Let me go ahead and we'll look at one other thing quick, and we've already gone 2 hours. I'm just always so long-winded. These are supposed to be an hour long, and I just always end up going, because once we get talking about it, there's just so much to go over. And so here are some of the other Florida tax deed auctions. These are auctions you can go ahead and take a look at, and you may want to go ahead and do it on your own time. Let's go ahead and just quickly go to one auction real quick and just kind of go through that process. So once we get to the auction, we're going to go ahead and click on the auction calendar. We can see the list of upcoming auctions. We're going to go ahead and click on the 21st, the next one coming up. And so once we get to this list, we're going to see that information, that basic information. What are we looking for? We're going to first take a look at that opening bid amount. That's, the amount that we have, that we're going to use depending on how much we have to invest. Then we're going to compare it to that assessed value. So I'm not going to look at a property, usually $900 opening bid, $1,500 assessed value. Now, occasionally you'll see these properties that have a low assessed value that are still going to sell for quite a bit higher, even at a tax deed auction. And that's because investors within that area know that that property has a lot more value than the assessed value. So much of land within Florida has been underassessed, so that the property taxes are lower, so that people will pay their property taxes, because there's a lot of land that's available or that's owned in Florida that may not be built on, different types of building lots, subdivision lots, and so they've underassessed it just to keep those property taxes coming in. Now, this property right below that, we're looking at that $8,000 opening bid and $103,000 assessed value. That has a lot better bid to value ratio. We can go ahead and click on that, the property record link, and we're going to see that here, here's a picture of the property right here. It looks like a pretty nice brick single-family home. We can also click on any of these to pull up the additional information, the sales transaction information, and then we have some of that information right here. We can see, it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,500 square feet, built in 1983. We can go, of course, take that site address. If we want to do a street view, we could. We already have the picture of the property, but we could go ahead and check the street view as well. See the property right here. Really looks to be not a bad little property. And then we could go, of course, check it out on Zillow just to get an idea of what the assessed value is, or what the market value is. So of course here we're looking at $170,000. We can also see some property right here within this same neighborhood, 299, 475 that is sold recently. Of course, these are probably newer and a little bit better, but it's within the same neighborhood, so that gives a better idea of we can actually use these properties as comparable. We can also see that these are located on a waterway. And these properties are actually probably worth a lot more, because worth higher than 170, because they are on the waterway. But overall, we're looking at a pretty good, safe investment. Once we've done additional due diligence, but you're looking at that $8,000 opening bid versus the assessed value. And we go through and do the exact same thing on any of these properties. So this property here, we can see the access is undetermined. we may not spend a lot of time on that property because it's $14,037 plus there's no address. And we just kind of go through this list and we just kind of quickly glance at each one of these and use that. Okay, well, here's one for $2,000, $3,000, $46,000. Well, we would probably go ahead and look at that property. You see that it's a condo. We won't look at each one of these values because we're already out of time, but here's one for $14,239. Looks like a large piece of land, commercial land. You know, one thing we can look at is we can see here's some storage units within this area, so that actually might not be a bad piece of commercial land. 6,113. Looks like a nice condominium within there. 9,105. Another single family home. And so we just go through and look at each one of these properties, determine you know, what each one of the properties is, what their value is, and then as the auction got closer, we'd do additional due diligence on any one of these properties. Well, we've already gone over, guys. I appreciate you being on the line with me tonight. Go ahead and send me any emails with some of the questions that maybe we didn't get to. And of course, if you're would love to have you again next week as we go through another aspect of tax lien and deed investing and review some upcoming auctions and just really kind of go through the process. So I just want to thank you guys for being on the line, for being troopers. You know, sitting down for 2 hours and going through this does take some of your time, and of course I appreciate you being here and asking different questions and being involved as far as this learning process. There's so much opportunity. That's one thing about tax sale investing. Every year I think, man, there can't be more opportunity than there was last year. And it just, you know, every year I just get more impressed about different strategies, different opportunities, different online auctions, different local auctions. There's always good property. Every year there's good property. You know, that's the great thing about tax lien and deed investing that versus just normal real estate invested. You know, with tax lien investing, I will put tax lien investing up to any other type of investment. You know, if you want to invest in something like stocks, or if you want to try to earn an interest rate return, there's just nothing safer than tax lien investing, especially if you're doing it right. You know, if you're investing into tax lien certificates on good property, you know, your money is protected better than any other way it can get protected. It's protected by real estate that has a high value versus the amount that you've invested, and it's also protected by state law. If the market stops tomorrow or something happened tomorrow and the stock market dropped, you know, you're still going to be earning a guaranteed interest rate return. You know, that's not going to change. And then of course with tax deed investing, one of the best ways to acquire real estate. So again, thank you for being online. We'll go ahead and put the replay up in the web in the video section, and again, we'll talk to you again next week. So thank you guys and have a great evening.